Okay. So the only person we're waiting for right now is Carol. Mara, I think I mentioned, is given what's going on with her, she had said that she was going to have to bow out for these sessions. She's going to try to be there for the all day thing. Um, I just received an email from Sherry earlier, about an hour ago, that she has an uncle that's getting close to passing, so she's on her way to go be with him. And then Ginny had contacted me saying, unfortunately, the same thing as Mara. She, with the passing, with the death in her family, and also with multiple other things, she's going to bow out for the rest, which is unfortunate. But I think in my email, and there's Carol. In my email, I mentioned that, I'm going to try to accommodate people because, human condition happens, and I'm going to see what I can do to work with them to finish their part of the certification. But there's a lot going on in the world. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of strife right now. So let me flip my, got hair in my face. There we go. Um, yeah, lots going on for people, and just trying to make sure I support in the way that I can, but also, help people get through um, the certification process. So, so how is everybody today? Does the world feel
Good.
crazy? Donna's like, what?
Juggling,
Yeah,
juggling.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot to be juggling right now for sure. So, yeah. What about others? How's everybody doing? And Donna, are you back home, or where are you right now? You're still,
I'm in Texas.
okay, okay,
I'll be heading back next week.
okay. Got it. Okay. All right. And let's see. So I think we've got everybody in here. Okay. So we have a lot to do, of course. We've got, um, I know that Sherry said that she would have two, let me think about this. She would have two people to present on next week, given that, she had to bow out today because her family member. Um, Let me flip back.
What happened to her family member?
She has an uncle who is pretty close to passing.
Oh,
And so she contacted me about an hour ago saying, I'm not going to be there. I need to go be with family. It's an uncle, who's
sure.
pretty close. So I don't know where and like what the proximity is to her. I don't think she lives close to her. I mean, I think her family lives in New Zealand, but I'm not sure where, like how far away.
Hmm.
So, all right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how to building a soul healing practice, and then we'll jump right into presentations. The number one thing that I want to emphasize is that, and I think I've emphasized this a few times already, is that, the information you receive in these certifications is really about how you want to weave them into your life and how you want to create something for yourself. I know some of you are thinking about coaching practices, creating coaching practices. Some of you are interested in, weaving it into the work that you're already doing. And, my thing is, I don't want you to be a mini me. I want you to really take the information and weave it in and create what you want. And yet I also want to help you in whatever way I can figure out how to do that. Like, how do you want to weave this in? How do you want to, like, do you want to do soul health assessments as part of your work? Do you want to just weave the knowledge into therapy work that, some of you are learning to do? To me, I just want to help weave it in and however, that makes the most sense for you. And I want to, I don't know how much you know about this, but I've been doing this kind of work to help coach people to create soul healing practices or spiritual practices for a long time. So part of what I have, gosh, I've done this for I don't even know how many years, because I have people from kind of all over the country. a couple outside of the country who have basically hired me, quote, as a coach or a consultant to help them kind of figure out, okay, how do we do this? I've got a person in California who, interestingly, she has these two businesses and they're both skin related. She's actually a dermatologist, but she wants to do it more from a spiritual perspective and a soul healing perspective. I've worked with her for about 3 years to start to kind of get her social media going and teach her kind of how to move into the world of how do you integrate this into a website, how do you do your messaging, things like that. um, I've got therapists, a couple other therapists throughout the country that I've worked with to kind of help them tweak. I have a person in England that she's actually from India, but she lives in England right now. And she is creating, she's had a coaching practice for a while, but she's really trying to deepen it. And, it is a women-based coaching practice, but, really trying to, she wanted help with her website. She wanted to really look at it and see the messaging and see how that came together. So part of what I wanted to offer today is, number one, if you have questions on how to integrate this information into a vision of yours or the work that you already do, please feel free to send me those questions and, we can decide how this might work. Because, I think everybody's got a different path. Everybody's going to be taking this information and using it differently. But, I've learned the hard way. When I say the hard way, give me 15 or 18 years ago. Well, it's probably almost 20 years ago when my first website was born. Wow, what a learning curve to figure out like how to do all of that and how to, get the SEO just right and get the wording right and get, it's just really kind of amazing. But um, I help people with mission development, value, kind of the value system, mission development, vision planning, I mean, all of that kind of stuff. The one thing I will say is that, I think most people that I have worked with, and there's another kind of a therapist energy healing group that I'm part of that meets once a month. The number one thing I hear is fear of actually putting themselves out there as a soul healing practitioner. Because the thing is, it's not mainstream. People don't always even know what the language is, don't really know how to explain themselves. And so that is one of the things that I help people do is figure out how to create the messaging for people so that, again, people can understand it in a tangible way. And, hopefully throughout this program, you've gotten some language that has helped you just kind of realize that, this is practical spirituality as far as I'm concerned. This is not, yes, some people would see it as woo language, but really this is about how does the soul show up in every single part of our life and how can we really help people get to the point where they realize sometimes there's something deeper going on. There's something deeper, there's a deeper level. I had in fact, a client that I worked with today that um, I helped her see that we really do have to address things from the body, the mind, and the soul, because for her, she kicked smoking after like 40 some, like 47, 48 years. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. She's 72 right now. No, 75 year right now. And so actually her smoking might be longer than that, but I know she said like 40 some years, I think is what she said. But now she's switched to food. And so I had to help her understand, biologically speaking, why people switch from one substance to another substance. So I talked about dopamine receptors. I talked about serotonin release. So sometimes you have to go at your practice from the body, mind, and soul perspective. And the reason I'm saying that is that now that you know that these are the layers, that might also help you have a vision for how you approach things in your own practice. So you might want to design your own practice, whatever that might be, about the language of the body, mind, and soul more than just soul healing. There's lots of ways to approach this. So, um, I don't want to jump in too far with this because not all of you might be at the point of actually being ready to create your own practice. But if you have questions, I can write them down and I can either try to answer them now or send you, messages to help give you some pointers. So, does anybody have questions in particular? And the other thing I want to say is, as part of providing you with that list a few weeks ago of the possible trainings, one of those side trainings is really jumping in and doing a training on how do you build a practice? How do you do the social media? How do you do the business, model? How do you, so there is going to be a training that comes up that really will help you work through those things. But if anybody has specific questions right now, that's fine too. So I will shush for a moment.
I just have a quick question, and because I'm not a therapist, obviously, and I can sense when things are deeper than what I have the capability to address. I'd like some information on like how to make a referral, how to broach the subject of making a referral, because oftentimes people who come to me are very slow to trust anyone. And also, I'm curious to know, and not about at what point do you feel like if I have a strong sense that maybe medication would be a good idea? So
Mhm.
when do you decide to refer them to a therapist versus a psychiatrist or somebody who can write scripts?
Yeah.
But
So,
for the most part, I don't know what I don't know.
no, and I think
In terms of building a business.
yeah, and those are actually great questions. So one of the things I've been doing is jotting down questions like throughout the last couple of months of what people had questions about, like how do you wrap up a session? How do you? So I've got this list of questions so that I can hopefully send some information later. I'm going to answer that one pretty quickly. If as a therapist, sometimes you don't always know if they need medication because people can hide their stuff really well. And it can look like one thing or another. But one of the best things that the quickest, I guess, questions, and I would love to hear what you have to say about this, Carol, too, since you've been doing this for a long time. One of if as a psychologist, I feel pretty comfortable saying, is XYZ, whatever the situation is, inhibiting your life to a point of taking away from your life satisfaction or your life or your quality of life? And usually, if someone can answer that pretty quickly. So, the first thing I would do if I was a non psychologist is basically refer them to their physician because their physician is going to be able to at least give them, hopefully, I should say, they will be able to kind of assess a little bit more. However, being a psychologist, the first thing I would do is say, have you ever thought about talking to someone about this? Because ongoing care can be far more helpful than, just talking to a friend or talking to a family member. Um, I am biased, of course. I like referring to spiritually based practitioners. And one of the best things you can do is offer to help find someone if you'd like. And all you have to do is Google. Just basically ask Dr. Google, spiritually based therapists in the state of Vermont, and then basically encourage them to maybe look at their insurance panels to see how many of them, if any of them fit, if they're going to be using insurance. The other part of it too is, you have to figure out what your comfort level is, and you can honestly say, hey, I'm not a mental health practitioner, but I'm kind of getting the sense that you might be depressed or anxious or whatever. And, have you ever considered getting some care? And just opening that door can be very helpful for people because even in this day and age, people are afraid to talk about mental health concerns.
Well,
So,
and some people don't have that coverage. And a lot of times, because I'm an energy worker, an energy healer, they want to try to make us
mhm,
the be all and end all and the fix it person.
yeah. Or
And
massage therapists or estheticians, absolutely. and so that might be a boundary kind of thing to basically learn how to say, this feels like this is out of my scope of practice. But, if you have access to someone, I would recommend it. The other part of it is basically, a lot of churches actually have um, lower cost um, practitioners. And most communities have community-based mental health practices. The challenge with that is that you don't always know what you're getting as far as the treatment. So it's a tough one. It is not 100% foolproof. So yeah, it's definitely a tough one. Yeah, I have actually presented to massage therapy training programs for how do you set those boundaries when someone's laying on your table and pouring their heart out to you, and it can get very challenging. So we can definitely talk. You and I could probably talk more about that individually if that would be helpful. So, Carol, do you have any thoughts? Because it's a tricky one.
It is. And sometimes I help them tease out whether it's a primary or a secondary condition. So, primary meaning that you've inherited the genetic predisposition toward, let's say, OCD or depression or bipolar or whatever the case may be. And if it's in the, kind of all through the family history, then you might suspect it's more primary. And then people will develop secondary conditions based on untreated underlying conditions. So a lot of times when I work with ADHD, they have secondary stress, I mean, anxiety and depression because of the stress of managing untreated ADD, or circumstances like, a major life event or a death or something like that is going to be a situational factor that can tip them over into depression or stress, or losing a job, all those kinds of life circumstances, right, can create symptoms that you can manage in different ways. And if it's more situational, I might work more holistically with them, not so much with medication. But if it's a primary condition that's more genetically based and runs in the family and is really reducing their quality of life, then I would usually push for them to consider the medication route.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And Carol's right. I mean, there's so many layers to this, and some of it might be situational depression versus, biologically based depression. The other part of it and I'm glad that I kind of turned it over to you for a second because it gave my brain an opportunity to go, oh, yeah. Um, Most communities actually have therapists that do sliding scale payments for therapy as well. You just have to find them. And you can,
Or pro bono, and many of us do pro bono work, and there are like the Maryland Psychological Association has a whole group of people that offer pro bono counseling, several cases each, so there are definitely resources like that in communities.
yeah, it just took me a minute for my brain to be able to go there. But that might help, Donna, for anybody who comes to you that may not have insurance or may have limited funds, because the sliding scale or the pro bono work can be very helpful. And like I said, some churches actually have counseling centers that's kind of their service to the communities, and people do not have to go to the churches in order for them to access those kinds of services. Um, the other thing that is very valuable here, I know that not all communities have them, but here in Winston-Salem, it was one of the first community services I checked out, and they are really good. But we have a Forsyth County, this is the county mental health association, and they are basically a kind of like a concierge service. And I don't even really know how they're funded, to tell you the truth, but they do free. I think they have 4 or 5 different free support groups. They have a bipolar support group. They have a number of different support groups, but you might want to look into something like that as well, because that's something that can be very helpful if there is kind of a hub within a community that
Yeah,
does
I
those
see
kinds of
people all
resources.
over the country, so it's kind of hard to know what's
Yeah.
in California, Oregon, Wyoming.
Yeah, and you could just encourage them to say, hey, check out to see if there's a mental health association in your community. And literally, Dr. Google is one of the best options of just saying, hey, Google, pro bono or sliding scale therapists in your community. Yeah. There are usually psychiatrists through community programs that people can see too. Again, it just depends on the community how good they are. Yeah. And actually, in Winston-Salem, we have something called crisis control, and that community program actually has a pharmacy of their own that if people cannot afford medications, as long as they have an acting physician send a prescription, they can go up to crisis control and get their medications. So it's actually, um, I don't, I'm sure they don't have narcotics there, but I'm sure that for a lot of the things like eye drops and mental health kinds of some of the older medications I'm sure are very accessible. So yeah, but we can definitely talk about that more individually if that would help. Any other thoughts or questions about starting healing practice? Because again, I'm taking notes on information that might be helpful, and then I can send stuff out later. I just want to make sure we have enough time to go through presentations today.
This is Krista. I just wanted to share. I turned my video off because I'm driving again a couple miles to the library, but I'm thinking about this two level. Number one is with my primary, developing and teaching continuing education courses for the child welfare workforce here in North Carolina, because of course I can see how this information would be far more helpful than the typical general information that we plug into most of our courses that is based around self-care.
Right.
Yeah, I've been trying to think about how I can begin to introduce this to the folks I work with at UNC Chapel Hill, because of course I'm going to have to get them on board as well. And then of course I'm thinking about it just as the little side work stuff that I do, that I'm, planning to launch more when I retire in a few years. So those are the things that have been on my mind about this. So I'm excited, especially with my folks at Chapel Hill, because I've got some peers that are LCSWs, et cetera, and giving them a chance to consider a more in-depth way to go about business is exciting. Thanks.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yeah, great. I took some notes on that too. Wonderful. Yeah, and it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know yet. And so, part of creating a soul healing practice, you probably don't know a lot of what you might need. And so I keep that in mind as well. So we'll definitely, talk more about that as well. So, okay, so we can talk more about that over time, but who would like to present today? Let me get a separate piece of paper here.
Is there any way I could present a couple here at the beginning? I need to hop off soon.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not able to stay the whole time today.
This is Krista. I can present. It'll just need to be a little later, so that works perfect with Susan.
Okay. So let me write names down. Susan to Krista. I think I saw
Carol too.
Carol
too.
and then Yetta.
I was going to present, but I couldn't get Wendy to fill out the forms this weekend.
Okay. And then Donna. Okay, so we've actually got a number of people who can present. And Eleanor got you down. Perfect. Okay, so we will start then with Susan. And then I will put Krista toward the end so that she can hopefully not be driving and not hurt herself. So Susan, do you want to jump in?
Okay. So I hope I can remember. I have I did Jen and Mara. These are the two from our group, but it was a while back, so I had to go back and reread. So I'll start with Jen. And I hope y'all don't mind. I'm gonna read a little bit just so I don't forget. She's 45 years old. A lot of this y'all already know, but she's 45 years old. She's married with 9 children. She and her husband have 5 biological children, and those are all boys. And then she has twin girls adopted from Ethiopia and 2 girls adopted from China, but those girls are not twins. She's in grad school to earn her master's degree in counseling from Liberty. She's previously earned a degree in early childhood and family sciences with an emphasis on child life. She worked as a certified child life specialist. She worked in the hospital for 10 years, during which time she was a lactation consultant, director of the Safe Kids program. And then I thought this was interesting. Sometimes she was present in the delivery room with expectant mothers, and not necessarily ones she knew. And Jen feels strongly about that the relationship between mother and child is the most important one in a child's development. So I think that's going to be something that that'll be kind of a strong point of her career as she moves forward. Um, let's see. So I love talking with Jen. It was super fun to hear about all of her stories with her kids and how their family evolved and some of their adventures. I'm not a world traveler, so it's super fun to hear. Not yet. I mean, I have been overseas, but that's not something I do on a regular basis. So it was super fun to hear about her experiences, and she was very brave at some points during her journey. And she had to learn a lot of things on the fly to get our kids back here. So anyway, let's see. She determined, and I do think this came up already, but she determined that her financial branch is the branch that has the most room to grow. But just as she mentioned, she does stay with her means, but that's something she wants to work on. Her spiritual and physical branches were her highest scoring, and if you'll remember, she shared with us that she's training for her half marathon. Um, so let's see. So yeah, um, that that's about we really just talked about the financial branch being where she wants to grow. Um, let's see. Okay, so then I didn't include this in my original paperwork. So the human factors I would say are connected would be life experiences, self aspects, cultural influences, and geographical location, just because her children come from different locations. Um, and then the last thing, I can't remember if this is in what we're supposed to write about, or I just made a note about this, but Jen was my first evaluation. And I went back a few days later to write this up, and I realized my notes weren't very good. So while I don't want, it was just a really, I mean, I'm far away from finishing up school for my career, but it's something I'm really glad that I was aware of. Like I need to figure out how the balance between just sitting and chatting and having good biofeedback, but also making coherent notes that when I go back to write, whatever I need to write, whatever that I actually know. I left holes. I actually had to go back and email her for a couple clarification points because I just I just left holes. So fortunately, it's us, and
Right.
I could just email her back and be like, "So I wrote half a sentence. I have no idea what the sentence says," but that was good for me to learn. I think I did a little bit better with Mara, and then I've done better with the next two. So I mean, as long as I'm still improving, everything's fine. But
Which is why we
okay, that
call this
was
practice.
yes, that was a lot of words. Did I speak too fast, or do you need clarification on anything?
You're fine. Well, and I think I know that this was the first one you worked with. So, what have you learned from working with her versus what you've worked with other people so far? Like, in other words, how has this progressed for you? That's probably a better way to ask that.
Um, well, interestingly, I would have said before we started doing these that I felt like I had a really good um understanding of your model. And I do, but it is when you start applying it and integrating it with an actual person, you can see it in a different light. And so I'm seeing it's like this is going to sound corny, but it's like my understanding of this model is more colorful now. I know that sounds corny, but that's just the best thing that there are flowers right behind my computer screen. So maybe that's why I said colorful, but um I don't know. Definitely more in-depth understanding as you apply it. But I've always been that way. I don't really learn well. That's why I have to take so many notes. I have to be doing something else for anything to sink in. Which is why I then had to ask Jen for clarification because I didn't have great notes. But being able to apply it does help just really conceptualize a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's why, again, practice makes perfect to me. That's why
Yes.
we do this because, and even, as they say, you learn as you teach. So the more that you
Yes.
teach something, the more you learn. And I think this is fun in some ways for me to kind of help you see how does this come to life? How is this actually going to come to life with folks? So, no, I think you did fine, and I think the fact that this was the first person, but you're also starting a program right now, so you're integrating a lot of information. This isn't just this certification, so I'm sure that there's a lot going on for you right now.
Sometimes I just have to declare that my brain's broken. In fact, my husband came home after a long day of studying and I couldn't form a sentence. I was like, there's nothing else working. So that's why it did take me a little bit more time too, because I did want to take these, I wanted to take these seriously and that's why I didn't do them when was finishing up the other class. Cause I'm I have learned that not everything is going in as easily, as quickly, and I cannot absorb as much in one time as I would like to, but it's sticking. But it is easier to stick if as much as some of my school assignments are lengthy, that's when I'm actually
Yeah.
when I'm engaging in something in a different way is when you can, I think for me, I can absorb it better. So this did help. And I will add, I have loved these private conversations with everybody. Like Dawn and I had a great conversation. It was just great to get to talk one on one. And we went off course, both Marge and Donna, we went off course a little bit and it was just lovely. So that was really special to me as well. And I know that wasn't like an objective of the assignment, but it was a lovely byproduct to get to engage with
Well, and
each
and
other.
keep in mind, and I will say this before you go on to your next person, keep in mind that I really don't do anything unless there's a purpose. And part of having you interact with each other is about helping you learn from each other, but then also getting to know one another.
Hmm.
In the long run, kind of like what Donna was saying earlier, is like, I want to create this as a community so that you have referral sources as well. This is the thing. It's like this is a community and a directory at the same time. So, me having you interact with one another was purposeful for lots of reasons. And this is, when we're not doing in-person training, it's really hard to get you to create a
Right.
for you to interact. So you did fine, you did great. I think this is just, getting your toes in the water, and now we're going to go into the deep end.
And you're right about all that. I'm in my class's theories right now, so my brain is at
Mhm.
max capacity. I am even I, I'm I'm just trying to sometimes I even want to see where you're coming from. I have to not do that to you. I'm just trying to read the material that I'm taking in. But one day I might love to have a conversation about that with you.
You're
But
fine. We can,
anyway, okay. Well, I will go on to my next person because
okay.
I know y'all might get sick of hearing me soon. So Mara was my next one, and she's just dear as well. And I'm sorry that y'all aren't getting to enjoy her these few weeks. She's 29, single. She has a background in both environmental science and microbiology. I was a little worried at that we weren't going to be able to have a conversation, but we could connect. That she's very, very intelligent, and that comes off very quickly. She's currently living in her childhood home, and she enjoys spending time with her partner and her cat, which we've met her cat. Um, her current, and this was a month ago, but she currently works in catering, but is in the process of developing her own energy work business. I know she told me a few weeks ago she was doing some trauma training, and that's finished. So I think she's moving in the direction of her business as well. Let's see. We did the brief soul survey and the health assessment were the primary ones we relied on as well. And then we looked at a few of the individual branches. Mara suffered significant loss. I did have her permission to share all of this, but she suffered some significant losses when she was younger. She was 12 when her father died, and her mother died the week of high school graduation. She said she turned in her paperwork for like the graduation paperwork, and then before graduation, so that little connected time, she lost her mother. Um, so her social, okay, so yeah. Um, she believes that her social and interpersonal branches possess the greatest growth potential, is the way I like to say it. It sounded positive that way. And we agreed that many of her lower scoring responses were reflections of her losses. And then she also has some troubled relationships with her extended family. So she's 29. Obviously, she suffered the loss of her parents. So the extended family has felt like they needed to have a lot of input in her decision making. And so that's added a layer, that's added a layer of stress actually. Um, Mara also scored low on social interactions with friends, and that was something um, she was aware of. But that was part of where her growth would need to be. And Mara did share, and I put this is, I don't know, out of order in my writing, but um, so she had her traumatic childhood. She also found formalized education to be traumatic, and that's why she pulled away. Like she felt like there was a lot of pressure she was in a demanding school, and she just had to step back from it because she felt like it was traumatizing to her. And she did just finish that trauma training, which she actually sent me the information about that because I thought that sounded really interesting. I was curious about it. So in my spare time, I might participate in that as well. Um, and so I had written, if we were to have future sessions, in my conclusion, that I would want to explore the trauma with her. That would be something I would want to. If obviously, I think as far as the human factors, there are quite a few societal norms, and that would be her extended family kind of trying to tell her what to do, and then the college piece, whether to how to fit in that box, and that wasn't for her. Generational mindset, geographical location, the family of origin, self aspects, life experiences, and trauma.
Mhm.
So her story is complex and with a lot of factors.
Well, even kind of phase of life for her.
Yep.
She's sort of to me, phase of life is for everybody, but it's that whole idea of, she's at a juncture. She's at a
Yes.
juncture for lots of things. So, what about other people? Does anybody else think of other things that, other dimensions that might need to be kind of addressed if, Susan were to work with her? Because I think the phase of life is a big one for me. It's like, yeah, she's at that point where there's lots of transition.
And I think that the transitions have been a little more, it's extended this transition period a little bit because she does have like the mold in the house that she's been tending to. This is her childhood home. And so she's having to do things that a lot of us that she explained to me like the responsibility of the house fell on her as a high school graduate. And then so she's been sort of stuck in that transitional period because she's had some problems that most typical 22-year-olds are not having to navigate. So it's complicated this phase. I should have put that one on there, but it's complicating this phase a good bit for her. So she's
Well, and one thing that I will throw in there, and not everybody might know this, and I don't think this is personal to her necessarily, so I don't have a hard time saying this, but the second I heard black mold in her house, I immediately got concerned about the fact that if she has any autoimmune system problem, you can actually have black mold in your system, and it can be very hard to get out of your system. And so that was one of the first things I thought of for her was like, oh no, because, I know she's got pain, she's got other kinds of things that are already going on. And I have a client who has mold in her system, and she's actually a physician. So it can be very, very hard on a person's body. And the treatments are, you can't just go to the doctor to get rid of black mold. You actually
Right.
have to go to a holistic practitioner in order to do it. And so that was one thing I was thinking. But again, most practitioners wouldn't even know that. So, it's one of those things where it's like, well, that kind of cued into my brain for her. So, yeah. And Christy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, great, great presentation. And for me, I would want to know more about any learning differences when she described, the school process feeling traumatic. Because I'm really good with helping people find creative resources based off various things that they're wanting to accomplish. And so that would be something I would want to know more about just because I focus a lot on learning styles being a teacher.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, the teacher in me definitely was had to tell her to sit down, honey. We're doing something else right now. But yeah, I definitely was curious about that. And we talked for several hours, which I think has been pretty typical of all of us with our conversations. So, but yes, that would be another good thing to if it would be especially important if she was interested in pursuing formal education again, how to help her. Right now that wasn't even a conversation for her, but it might be at another time. And if like are her learning styles a roadblock? Because it doesn't have to be. I was a special education teacher, so it definitely doesn't have to be. So yeah, great point. Great point.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was also thinking like, and I just because my daughter's autism ADHD, like that's helped me become a better
Mm-hmm.
teacher, even with
Mm-hmm.
my one-on-one interactions with people, even if it's trying to explain something or explore something, better understanding kind of how people express something or, that kind of stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of help me tweak how I'm going to engage with them. That can be
Mm-hmm.
helpful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm sitting here glancing at, oops, dropped a piece of paper. I'm glancing at this whole thing, and for her, really, probably all of the human factors could be playing a part for her. And,
Yes.
that's part of this is like, okay, where to start, and calming her system. I even think about that bioenergetic field, and her system is always activated, not only because of the trauma, but because of basically energetically where she comes from. So, I mean, there's so many different levels of this, but the beautiful thing is she's so self-motivated. She is so motivated. And,
So motivated.
yeah.
Yes.
And for what she's been through, to me, that's just beautiful. So,
I absolutely. I just she's got such a special light about her.
yeah,
I'm so honored to have
yeah,
gotten that time with her because I think there's a lot, she's got a lot to share with the world.
yeah, she really does. She has a lot of gifts that she will be giving once her life settles down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. Good presentation. I know, again, like you said, you're learning, but it sounds like you integrated very well.
Thank you.
You're
We'll see how we do with the next. And I'm sorry I have to leave early, everybody, but I hope you all have a great week.
okay. Have a good night. I'll see you next.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. All right. We're going to jump right in. So, Carol, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I can certainly jump in. I have two to present. I will start with our own dear Eleanor, who was such a delight to work with and so much fun to talk to. I will go ahead and talk about her first. So, I'd asked her at the beginning, as we were asked to do, what was it like for her completing the soul health assessment? And she was saying that she loves taking tests about herself, and it's very satisfying to find out more about herself. So she has a very inquisitive, curious nature. So that helps. Basic demographics, some of which you probably already know. She's a 48-year-old married woman for 26 years. And her husband and she were dating in was her junior year in high school onward, and they have two children, a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old. 23-year-old got married recently. She stayed home their whole childhood, and that was sort of modeled by her mother. And her husband has a business in water and sewer, and she does the bookkeeping for him. So that's been her sort of second job, raising the kids, running the household, and doing the books. She is not particularly good at it or inclined to do it, but she's figured out how to do it and just sort of taken that on, but it's not very soul satisfying. She's done that for 15 years, and she wants to figure out what's next for her and, what would be better in alignment for her moving forward. So that's part of her journey. She's been working with Dr. Kelly for a number of years now, trying to, figure out what's next for her and helping her with different issues she's run into over that course of time. Another issue that's a basic demographic sort of, which plays into geographical location, is that she's in a very rural, very red district, which is not in alignment with her soul either. And so that, has weighs on her in certain ways as well. She's the oldest daughter and family member of her family, and so family members come to her for advice and guidance. And she kind of did this course as a way to feel like she can offer more support to others when they do come to seek guidance from her. She is a recovering people pleaser, and she has a lot of broken friendships or relationships because she had a tendency to kind of overperform as a friend and then get burnt out, tired, and resentful, and then pull back, and then they would get angry at her because she had changed how she showed up for them. So it happened. She stated about 3 times in major relationships and 2 times in other more minor relationships. She grew up in an extended family of alcoholics. In other words, both of her parents' parents were alcoholics, and others in their extended families were alcoholics. So there was a lot of codependency. Her father was narcissistic, and there were some authority issues with him that she's been working through. And then physically, she has rheumatoid arthritis, which got triggered shortly due to the stress of and shortly after her parents' divorce, which happened when she was in her 30s. But it was a very important life event because of the way it happened, and her father's handling of it felt very abandoning to her whole family, and including kind of closing her mother out of the house so that her mother had to come live with her and was only allowed 5 outfits to bring with her. So that kind of shifted a lot of dynamics in the family. But she's had the privilege of watching her mother grow and heal in the process of her evolution through this and beyond it, because she then remarried and found a wonderful man who actually made Eleanor for the first time feel seen, by a father figure, and was safe and, and really was healing. But then another life event happened because he died recently, and that really broke her heart. So she's been working through that. So obviously these events all affect her various branches, but the 3 that she identified as being the most impacted were interpersonal, occupational, and psychological. We're going to get into those details in a minute, but I also kind of asked her in general, sort of, who are you on a soul basis, sort of what are your passions and essence and purpose? And she explained that she gets energy from people and likes to be around them, but she's realizing that she needs more time to herself and to kind of get to know what she needs and to care more about and for herself, rather than as a recovering people pleaser myself, focusing on pleasing everybody else and taking care of them. So she's sort of been, since COVID, figuring out what she wanted to cull from her life and what she wants to focus on more, and assessing whether they serve her still or not. She does love to travel as a fellow Sagittarian. I know, Kathy, you talked about that yourself. And she really loves to have at least one trip on the agenda in the future that she can plan for and think about and look forward to. And she is also learning how to spend time with just herself. She had spent a lot of time as she raised her kids, focusing on volunteering at the kids' school and taking on other things for the community. and and kind of abandoning herself in the process. She does have a very solid marriage, and they've worked well together and are good supports for one another. She shared a tidbit, which she shared with all of us, but just to remind you about the soul journey that we were all taken on at the last intensive. And she talked about how profound it was to have her soul come forward and, tell her kind of what she needs. That she was told to kind of give herself the love that she did not receive from her emotionally unavailable father, and to also give her new puppy that love. So she's been working on that. And he was, a rather narcissistic person. And, when he went through the sudden divorce of her mother, or left her mother, he was very heard about it, and was offended when they challenged him or asked questions about why he was doing what he was doing. And so she's also been working on her sort of broken heart from all those things, with her father and her stepfather dying. So we talked about the financial branch, because she says she's not at peace with her current financial situation and how she spends money and saves money, or her current level of debt. But her soul is, interesting dichotomy, because her soul is at ease with her financial future. She has a sense of abundance, or a sense that things will be okay, which balances some of her dis-ease. And she does make financial decisions based on what her soul needs, like travel and stuff. But she grew up not really knowing much about budgeting, because her mother didn't budget, and her husband didn't really make her budget. But she kind of knows it's going to work out, so she makes things happen. She's the only one who actually really spends the money in the house, because he works, and she kind of manages the books and gets the money and raises the kids by spending it on, the things for the household and the kids and all that. And both boys overlapped in college, and then one of them had a wedding. So there have been some family expenses that have put saving for their future, kind of on hold in some ways, although they have property investments that definitely are there to support their future. Let's see. So that's the financial piece. Occupationally, her soul's not very satisfied by her efforts in that area. Her work does not feed her soul well, and it's not aligned with what she truly wants, as I alluded to before. But her soul tends to fear change. So she's in that kind of self-exploration period of figuring out, what is it my soul really wants me to do with my next phase of life, because she's relatively newly, sort of a empty nester of sorts, as her kids are growing up, and she has more freedom to figure out where she wants to put her efforts. And then psychologically and interpersonally, her soul is not feeling fully at ease, and there are not that many positive thoughts about herself. And she doesn't have a strong knowing and acceptance of who she is at the soul level. So she's working on some of that, sort of standing up for herself, speaking her truth, setting boundaries, communicating her feelings and needs, that kind of stuff. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. And the sort of human factors that I noticed were the life experiences. So there's the divorce of her parents, the death of her stepfather. She had that physical illness caused by the stress of the divorce, and then she had an issue with a serious health issue with a newborn. So those kinds of things have certainly impacted her. Trauma from her family of origin dynamics as well. Self aspects, she's working on self-love and really seeing herself and getting in alignment with her soul. Cultural and geographical location influences, living in the red rural South. Stage of life as she's moving, toward being an empty nester, because both her kids are gone out of the house, and she's sort of in that stage of figuring out what's next. And then just some genetic impacts because of health issues. She has an autoimmune disorder as a result of the stress that got triggered by the stress of the divorce, and her mother also has autoimmune history with MS. Stage of life, I talked about stage of life. Social programming. She kind of grew up figuring out that parenting versus working was kind of what she was modeled, and that's sort of where she started her adult life is not that she regrets it, but that was sort of modeled for her in the social programming. Political climate, of course, because of all of the attention of being a liberal in a conservative area. Capacity for self-love and learning how to love herself more, and her level of human consciousness. I mean, she's really awakening, and it's nice to see her, evolving in those areas. And then some soul factors or life lessons for sure, and soul consciousness. Her soul consciousness is definitely evolving.
Mhm. Great. Yeah, great. That was very thorough. So thank you very much. And I'm chipping things off as you go and going, yep, 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 because you hit a lot of the human factors and a lot of the soul factors. I'd be curious about gender heritage. And the reason for that is you mentioned so many times about, kind of taking on what her mom did. And so that would be another thing, whether it was historical from a karmic perspective or just like a learned response. I know Eleanor's kind of nodding, but
Yeah.
that's the one that I would be like, I'd be curious about that. And again, we don't know, since we haven't gotten to the point of delving into past life stuff yet, there could be some strings there too. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the fun part.
And she mentioned wanting to do some past life work and soul realignment work with you, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a little segue. I will say from a Sagittarius perspective, Sagittarians are like ravenously curious about the mystical and ravenously curious about people in general. So when you were talking, I was thinking, okay, that fits. And from an astrology perspective too, Eleanor, so Carol reported that Eleanor has a fear of change. Now, what's really interesting about that, and this is where we'll go into in level 2, is Sagittarians love change. So there must be something else in her astrological kind of outlay and personality that puts a little stop in the door. So that's just something else to think about, is that, I immediately caught on to that going, oh, interesting, because Sagittarians are like, ooh, change, let's do it, because we're obnoxiously curious. But on the other hand, there's got to be something that's putting a little doorstop in there. So that will be kind of curious in level 2 to explore a little bit, and see where where that's coming from. Any comments from anybody else as far as, again, I think Carol did a very thorough job, but any other comments from someone else? And it's okay if there's not, but yeah. Okay. Good job. Very thorough. You handled, obviously you handled all that really well. The human factors, you nailed them, the soul factors. And it sounds like you two had a good conversation.
Yeah, we had fun for sure.
Good. Wonderful.
She's, as you suggested, a delight to talk to. So yes. And fun. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
Wonderful. Good, good. Yeah, it sounds like you guys had a good, really, very good conversation.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, wonderful. So the next ones were Yetta, Eleanor, and Donna. You want to go ahead?
And I have one more to do as well at some point.
Okay, so I'm going to put you as another one if we have time. So the faster we can get through these, the better. But perfect, wonderful, wonderful, good job. Okay, Yetta, it's yours.
Hey, this person, her name is Wendy. Is somebody I've known for 25 plus years. Again, she's somebody that used to work for me, but then when I moved on to a different role, we became friends afterwards. And she's a 55-year-old white female, mother of 2 daughters. Both are grown out of the household. She and her husband have been together since college and are kind of that unique couple where they clearly love each other, but they bicker like nobody's business. It's just, it's comical to watch sometimes. Wendy has a chronic and lethal illness. She has polycystic kidney disease, which has taken a lot of her relatives already, some very young with aneurysms and things like that. Her mother died at 61, so not much older than Wendy is now. Wendy is probably nearing the end stage area. She's not considered eligible for transplant yet. She's not that sick yet. One of her daughters does carry the genetic trait for this disease as well. She remains optimistic about it because she is doing so much better than her mother was at this age, but it's always there. And when she does feel not well, she really lets it get to her, which wouldn't we all? She is also menopausal, so that's a triple whammy. Have that on top of not these other things going on with her. Wendy also was an only child and both lost both her parents within about a year of each other. So she's struggled with that. And her husband just simply adores her, and so do her children. However, there is a lot of drama in the household. The one daughter is a recovering heroin addict, and one daughter has some significant mental health illnesses. Her job has been particularly stressful. She is a healthcare administrator, does the job very well, but also feels not like it's where she needs to be right now. A lot of stress in the job. Her boss that she really liked passed away unexpectedly, very young, and that has also been a bit of a trauma lately. She feels somewhat isolated. Her husband and she work for the same company, but not together. So that makes it a little complicated. She has to not be able to talk about work so much at home because of the levels of where they are in the organization. Oops. Are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. I can't
We
see
can
you.
see you.
Hang on. Where's everybody?
Lovely
No.
technology.
Yeah, I know. And well, if you can still hear me, I'm gonna keep talking. I'll find out how to get back on there in a minute. She is a very religious woman and her faith sustains her. She does have some concern. She does have some problems with her self aspects and that she's gained some weight recently. Menopause and problems with her kidneys doesn't help either one. She does drink a lot and sometimes to the point of blacking out. She and her husband do struggle in their relationship in that sexually she has a great deal of difficulty right now because of pain, both with menopause and because the size of her kidneys make it very difficult. He's not very understanding of this. He feels like it's something more and that she isn't interested in him. He is also self-dosing some testosterone and doing some interesting things that makes this even more problematic. On a day-to-day basis, he does everything for her. He treats her like a queen, and the girls. He's just the perfect husband on a day-to-day basis, but in this part of their life, it's a big struggle for her. She's fiercely loyal, both as a wife, mother, and an employee and a leader. She's well respected. She's thoughtful and gracious. Most of the time, she does not feel well, so that gets her very frustrated. She does worry about what's coming next, though she's very stoic about it. But she worries about not being here for her daughters. She is a huge Willie Nelson and Rolling Stones fan, and there's a picture of her and Willie Nelson sitting on her desk. And she's loves that. She also owns a property nearby at the beach, and she loves being at the beach. She puts a lot of faith in her Christian beliefs, but I'm not sure of her soul level understanding, and we'll explore that more. Let's see, what else? Overall, she seems okay. None of these problems are brand new, but they do get very tiring and very old for her. Um, the problems within the marriage also stem from an affair that she had many years ago, 25 years ago, that he has glommed onto, and that's why he believes there's something different for the reasons that she doesn't want to have sex, even though that's not the case. They have tried or they have dabbled in some different open marriage type stuff, and that didn't work out so well for them. In summary, Wendy is very open to doing the work. However, I do believe she thinks that her religious faith is all she needs. Some initial focus will be delineating spirituality versus her and soul health versus her religious beliefs. I think this may be surprising to her yet comforting. After that, maybe some soul, deeper soul dives to where some of these other wounds might be keeping her from living her best life. Some of the things that can't be helped really is her genetic, physical concerns. So probably working through how to work within that from a soul basis versus trying to work around it versus working with it. Let's see. She actually wants to continue to do some work together because she is, I think, more curious than anything what this means. We had to have that initial conversation about the soul versus the soul of what it is versus what it isn't as far as religiously. We'll probably explore a little bit more about how to honor it and healing it will make a difference for how she feels and how she travels through life. We explored some of the human factors, life experiences, obviously. Dealing with this disease has been part of her family dynamic for a long time. I think it was her grandfather who had the trait, and then her mother got it. Now she has it. One of her children has it. She's lost several cousins, as I mentioned before. One was 25 and had a brain aneurysm blow from the blood pressure problems with this disease. So trauma, there's been some trauma in Wendy's life. I don't know all of it yet. She did mention a few things that there was an abusive uncle who ended up in jail. So he's not a factor anymore, but the damage is previous. Also, I mentioned a bit about the self aspects. She's not happy with herself with the weight she's gained. And she's not happy with herself about not wanting to have sex with her husband, not feeling it, the pain, and nothing she can do about it.
Well, in menopause, that's not helping.
Menopause, that's not helping it at all. And
No.
she's gone to some pretty extreme lengths to try to help the situation. And some of the comments she made were a little telling, if not disturbing. Like she would start talking to me about some of the incidences that would happen between her husband and her in the bedroom. There's certain things she didn't want done, and he would do them anyway. So she said, I guess you can't really call it rape, but, and I'm like, whoa, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, genetic impacts because of the disease process, stage of life, menopause, bioenergetic field. She says that her husband's anxiety around their sex life really affects her, and the way he behaves really bothers her. I put level of human consciousness here because she is very aware and she is very in tune with herself. She just doesn't know how to use what she knows about herself to help the dynamic between she and her husband. It gets to be a fight every time she brings it up. So let's see. She has a belief that God will carry her through this life as it should go. But I do think she became very thoughtful around some of the questions I was asking her. And she asked me specifically at the end if we could set up another time because she wanted to explore some of those things a little bit more. So that's great. One of the other things that she was talking about a lot is hobbies and what would she do if she did retire. We talked a lot about when she should retire. She wants to retire, but and financially she can retire, but she doesn't know what she would do. She's very aware that her life is probably going to be shorter than she would like it to be. But she doesn't know what to do with her life if she does quit work.
Okay.
I think that's about it. Her branches were sexual health, physical health, intellectual and occupational, which probably you could guess that from
Mhm.
what we just went through, but
Well, and I'm going to throw this in. I know you made the comment that she said, I guess you can't really call that rape. Well, anybody who says that probably has sexual trauma.
yes,
And just because you're married to someone does not mean you can't be raped by them.
right.
So I think that, depending on, the work that you do, if you do move forward with her, that, that might be something to talk about. Now, on the other hand, that might be something for a therapist to talk about. So
Right,
it just depends on, comfort level and also the depth. Um,
right.
so, I've had a number of clients tell me that they've been assaulted by their husbands or wives, even so. Um, and you brought up the whole idea of she wouldn't know what to do with herself if she quit her job, if she retired, and interestingly, that might be what's keeping her going. If she's got that identity, if she's got that and she's good at it and she's, that might be what's keeping her going. So that may be something to explore with her that, that could be keeping her tree kind of together.
Right.
You don't know if that's kind of what's binding that, but that's an interesting thought for her. So yeah, great job. Any comments or thoughts from other people? That's a lot. You picked a doozy.
All of them are doozies. I don't know.
Yeah. She sent me the summaries this morning and I actually had a little time to read them. And I'm like, whoa, you chose some real doozies because the other one she has is another doozy. So yeah, Eleanor, it looks like you want to.
I just had one thing pop in my head. I thought about her job thing too that you said, but my sister lives with a ton of chronic pain, and she has found out that sex is one of the ways she feels better, like because of I guess the whatever you,
The
yeah,
physiological release. Mhm.
yeah. So she I mean, obviously she doesn't always feel like it, but she's kind of clued into this little, and I know that she's got your um, friend has other issues around that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But she is that's like her new pain reliever. So for whatever reason, just throwing it
Yeah.
out there.
Interesting that you bring it up because there's actually some research out there about obviously stress reduction, literally biochemically, but then also physical pain reduction. And again, it all depends on the person. So, for a lot of people, sex causes pain. So you do have to be mindful. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah. Anybody else want to mention anything?
And I can see you all now. I
Okay,
found you
you
again.
found us.
I found you again.
Technology.
So sex doesn't necessarily mean penetration into the vagina.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think so part of it is even pressure on top of her body, beside her body, just laying down sometimes makes her uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there's a lot going on there. I think there's a lot of significant pain, but I also think there's a lot other things going on.
Yeah. Manifesting in a physical form.
Yes.
Certainly. So speaking of that, I just want to show you this. I just ordered it. This arrived a couple weeks ago. This is a whole new metaphysical encyclopedia that I found. It was about $45, so it's still not cheap. But and I have not gone through it a lot, but in case people are interested, it's this is like my third one now because I'm fascinated. Um, but if anybody's interested, it's kind of it's it does try to give you a pretty good description of the metaphysical implications of certain kinds of concerns. It seems to be more comprehensive as far as not only the descriptions, but it also is like there's a lot more in this than the other ones that I have. So some of the encyclopedias that I have, I'm surprised at some of the health concerns that are not in it. And so this one seems to have more in it. So I'll let you know as time goes on as I flip through it, but I wanted to share that.
Who's the author of that one?
It's Yvette Rose.
Yvette Rhodes?
Yeah.
Oh, Rose.
Rose.
Mhm. Yvette Rose. Okay.
And she's got a number of books out there on different kinds of topics, but this one was kind of like, yeah, it tripped my eye because I'm always, trying to give resources and help people understand at a soul level what's going on with them physically. So, yeah, perfect.
I had a quick question. I saw you refer to that sheet you have there with the tree on one hand and it looks like the human factors on the other.
Mhm.
Because I don't remember seeing the human factors listed that way. I just have the one that's a really long document, like this
Yeah,
one.
I don't have this one. I don't think I put this one in there. And part of the reason is that all of the soul factors are listed here, and I'm trying to give you four at a time, not to overwhelm.
Oh, right. Okay.
Trust me, when you start looking at that whole tree, there's a lot. So that's the only reason that I haven't provided that one yet.
Okay.
It's just I have all these laminated copies of resources by me for various reasons. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good job. Good job, Yetta. I think Eleanor had her hand up next if you want to jump in.
Yes, I did. Sherry, and we had such a fun conversation.
Nice.
Oh, sorry. Somebody just pulled in my driveway, so my dogs are going to let us about that. So, as we all know, Sherry is a 58-year-old married woman with 3 grandchildren. She's a natural. Oh, shoot. I'm going to get rid of them. Go.
We can't even hear them. I'm
Sorry.
sure she can.
So sorry. She is a naturopath, focusing specifically on women in their midlife, helping them navigate hormonal changes naturally and successfully. The story and how she became a naturopath is really a testament to the universe showing you your path for your soul's true fulfillment. And I just really enjoyed. I mean, that's not really what we were there to talk about, but it was a really sweet story, a really great story. And I was very impressed and a little jealous of her passion for her work because she truly lights up when she talks about it. We decided beforehand to discuss her recreational branch of health, as primarily because she had already addressed the other lower branches in her other classmate consultation. Right. So we did the brief she did the brief soul survey, and it showed that her recreational branch was a bit lower among the other branches. She scored high in her social, interpersonal, intellectual, occupational, and spiritual branches. So when we looked at the recreational branch questionnaire, it showed a definite area that was lacking in her overall branch's health. She scored quite high in leisure, balance, beliefs about fun and leisure, and outlook on life. But in the fun section, she scored lower. We started talking about the word fun and how stereotypically it is portrayed in culture and media as gregarious, boisterous, over the top, often involving alcohol. And we kind of talked about how when you're constantly inundated with that messaging and you don't recognize that as fun for you personally, you can quite easily assume that you're just not fun. And so we examined a little deeper and broadened the definition of fun to apply to Sherry's personality. And it turns out that Sherry is a lot of fun and finds fun in unexpected but very gratifying ways. She just realized with 2 recent trips that she really enjoys travel, even solo, which I was very jealous of. And choosing how and when to explore a new place on her own is extremely fun and invigorating for her. Also, she recently spoke to a women's group about naturopathy, and she left feeling very uplifted and thought how soul-giving that experience was for her. We talked about how shucking society's definition of fun and intentionally looking for fun in her everyday life could really open up new avenues for her. And her soul assessment shows clearly that a new personalized definition of fun could be useful in rejuvenating this part of her recreational branch. Just by simply accepting that she is fun, Many different facets of her life have the potential to be re-examined and potentially determined as fun. Also, with this new outlook, fun will inevitably find her because she's actively looking for it and trying new things to create it. So, speaking with Cherie about fun and the possibility of turning her previous definition of it on its head was quite literally fun. And we had a very spirited conversation that I think will lead to some more thought and hopefully more fun for her. Cherie has spent most of her life growing spiritually and helping others to do so well. Because of this, her overall soul health is quite high. Examining her recreational branch was enlightening to me and helped me to see how cultural and societal influences can really cause huge blocks to a person's well-being. Cherie is an open, lovely person to chat with, and I enjoyed our time so much. And the human factors that I saw was self aspects, social norms, social programming, and also some stage of life because, as you get older, I think you have to
Yeah.
I don't know, remind yourself that it's okay to have fun. So
No,
it was
it's
really,
fun. It does
yeah.
sound like a fun conversation that you had. Good for you. Good for you. And I love that you actually really dove into that whole idea of exploring the idea and the definition for her, because, even though that was the last branch I added to the model, I think fun and leisure are such an important part of who we are. So I love that you kind of helped her uncover some things about that. That's good. Good, good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I I think maybe core motivators might be an interesting one to explore with her, because obviously she has motivations that what drives her basically. But no, it sounds like you did a great job, and I know, what from what she has said, she's been doing a lot of her own work as well. So it was probably fun to have a conversation.
Yeah, totally. She's very just interesting and fabulous.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Anybody else have anything they want to comment on? Yeah, I think you did a great job. Good job.
I just want to say, I think it really highlights my personal theory that Eleanor is naturally, when she dived in with the core motivator, you're a just natural professional encourager. I mean, right down to what was said earlier, and whoever it was that did the assessment, I've lost track now, but I mean, gosh, that was really great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For someone who says that they don't know what they're doing and they're not going to use this stuff, you use it very well. So, never underestimate. And again, Sagittarians love people, so that's the other part of that. So good. Okay, wonderful. Well, Donna, I think you're up.
Okay, here we go. This person is a friend of mine who I've known since 1979. Her name is Kathy Gilbert, and she is retired for about 8 years now from a mid-level management position in a Fortune 500 company, where she climbed up through the ranks early in her career and maintained that mid-level to upper level management position for over 30 years. She's all business when it comes to business, at least. She's 66, and she's a mom to 3 daughters in their 30s and 40s, 35 to 48. And she said, has a very active role in their lives as a chauffeur for their children and a caregiver, for the 8 grandchildren. She married her first husband at age 17, she said, to get out of the house. And there's more on that later, and divorced him when she was 23 with a 5-year-old. But she has now been married to her current husband for 40 years, coming up on May 2nd.
Wow.
So yeah, I sent over to her the brief soul survey and said, I think this is similar to what I believe you told us. Just don't overthink it. Just go through and write it. And when she sent that back to me, I sent her the soul assessment form, and I went through those before we spoke. Anyway, I was kind of surprised at the overall mid-range of her answers. She didn't give herself a 9, or she only gave herself 1 9. And most of it was like in the middle. And I don't know if it's because of my other practices with other colleagues here, other students, it seems like we all tend to give ourselves a little bit on the higher end because obviously we've done more work on ourselves. But if that's pretty typical, that's just my own.
Do you know what her date of, like, what, do you know when her birthday is?
Yeah, October 13th, 1959.
So she's a Libra. Um, I was just wondering because certain zodiacs are very hard on themselves. So it could be that she's got some Virgos tend to be very, very hard on themselves. So it'd be interesting to see, kind of what her
Her
like,
chart.
yeah, and I would even maybe at some point, if you're going to talk to her, explore that a little bit and just,
Yeah, she wants to continue through all the levels and
okay, yeah,
continue learning about this because it's not something she
mhm,
feels like she's really been exposed to.
okay,
Uh, but anyway, her numbers were more or less consistent with one another from the brief survey to the more in-depth one, but they were pretty much in alignment with my knowledge of how her life has evolved over the last 40 years, 40 something years. Her highest branches were spiritual, social, and environmental, and she factored her lowest as interpersonal, recreational, and physical. And when I asked her how it felt to fill out the surveys, she said she was surprised by how the questions really gave her pause. Um, Not as the second one, much more so than the first one. She says she stays so busy that she doesn't take the time to do much deep reflection. And some of the questions she'd never stopped to consider at all. In fact, we met over the weekend to talk about this, and we are supposed to meet again tomorrow to continue more because she's really getting into the digging down into it. But anyway, when I asked for a little bit more information on that, she teared up and she went right into the how all those my soul is questions phrasing. It just blew her away and made her cry when she stopped to consider that she had never stopped to consider
mhm,
that.
mhm.
So for a tough as nails, independent woman like Kathy, that's really saying something. We both come from the Big Girls Don't Cry Club. So it made me tear up. And I just thinking about it
Yeah,
when she teared up.
yeah,
So anyway, talking about first about the interpersonal branch, which is what she wanted to talk. She just launched right on into it. She feels like her core issues are centered more around her. Most of her answers, I guess she said she answered with her relationship with her husband in mind. They are just becoming increasingly distant.
mm,
During their working years, she said it was kind of easy to ignore how self-absorbed and selfish he can become when it comes to his avocation, which was his music, and his other hobbies, disc golf, online porn, other things like that. But now that they're both retired, she feels like he's making no time for doing things together and little time even for casual conversation around the house. She's just gotten so tired of trying that she doesn't really try to engage with him anymore. Oh, and he's a pot smoker, but that's out in the garage. That's his man cave. Let's see. She said the only time he's really respectful and nice to her, otherwise he's pretty dismissive, is when he's really sick. He got cancer a few years ago and he had a really tough recovery with chemo and radiation and all of that. So, and then he was super needy on top of being non-compliant. He still
mm,
smokes.
okay,
Yeah.
got it.
But she acts without regard for her feelings. He makes plans for them to go see his family or their friends without asking if she's available or inclined to go. And she feels shut out from his world, so she doesn't open up to him anymore about what's on her heart or what matters to her. Their spiritual beliefs are in two opposite directions, with her having a strong sense of faith in something out there directing what's happening, and him being an atheist. But their paths have been diverging for a long time, and she's just really trying to get in a place of acceptance about it because from a practical standpoint, she feels like divorce is not an option.
Okay.
She says her daughters are a lot more respectful than her husband, but they too can take her for granted and take for granted that she'll be willing to totally toss her calendar out the window to come and rescue when one of the grandkids needs to be picked up or taken somewhere, or, things like that, and helping with their activities and their care. And so far, she's been pretty able to do that. Growing up, she was the mother of the house to her little brother and sister because both of her parents worked running the family business. And then when they got home, I don't know if this is considered functional alcoholism, but they drank themselves stupid every night after the business closed. So she kept the house. She ran she did the groceries, she did the cooking, cleaning, and all of that. But what was really interesting is there was violence. They witnessed violence not every day, but it wasn't uncommon. And she was supposed to assign chores to her little brother and sister. And if they didn't get their chores done, she got hit.
Yeah.
Back talk was another thing that wasn't tolerated, and neither were tears. So again, when she teared up, I teared up because I don't often see her like that. She said they all felt like they had to earn their worth. And when her brother came out as gay as a teenager, he was ostracized from the family. Not by her, but by her parents. They didn't have anything more to do with them. So in looking at the soul health plan for this branch, it felt so deep to me. And I can be her friend, but I don't think I'm qualified to be her professional. And she is seeing a therapist. But we just decided to go with baby steps.
Yeah.
What she wants to see eliminated more than anything is being treated with disrespect. So we went into the steps to be taken to clean out the branch would be to first work on setting and maintaining boundaries and asking for what she needs insofar as how, people treat her, and being prepared to say no, even if it means practicing it in the mirror, practicing it driving down the road in the car, just because it's really difficult for her, especially with her kids. She's so dead set on being a different mom and grandma than what she had.
Yeah.
So she turns herself into a pretzel. That's not her words, that's my opinion. She intends to start with her daughters, though, calmly stating to each that she's no longer willing to accommodate on a whim, and be prepared for her to say no when they ask for something at the last minute, especially when they've been aware of needing help with it for some time and just waited to ask her. Once she gets comfortable with having conversation with her daughter, she will do the same with her husband, Bill. In terms of what needs to be fortified or filled up, it's the feeling that her time and her needs are respected. Her next action step to fill this branch back up is to speak up from now on in the moment instead of days later when she feels she's been disrespected or something happens. She intends to retire her doormat, as she said.
Nice.
And get out of victim mode.
Love it. Yeah.
She's not intentionally placing herself in victim mode, but she doesn't seem to be. She understands, and she said that that seems to have a hard time getting out of it. So then we went over the recreational branch, and it felt to me like some of her scores were somewhat situational. She feels like her soul seeks joy and knows when her soul tells her she needs to have some recreation, but with her husband's cancer has come back. So between her husband's current cancer scare and school starting and her grandkids needing help with activities, she's just stuck with little time for fun. Her husband doesn't factor in what she wants to do for fun, so she says that's fine. They're just not in the same place with regard to what they enjoy doing together, except for road trips to new places, and they can't do that right now because of his health. We talked through what needs to be eliminated, and with this, she came up with using some of her newfound free time from asking her kids to give her notice and being prepared to say no and actually following through on that, using some of that free time to block out for doing something fun instead. She loves to go walk on the beach. We live very near one. She goes once a year.
Oh my.
She's going to try to go once a month, and she's going to take, she has now, had to stop and think, 5 dogs. So she's going to take a different dog each time and try to get at least to go once a month. And she's also excited about her first girls trip coming up this January. She'll be going on her first cruise. And if she likes it, she's going to do more of that. So she also intends to look for more things to do locally for fun, like garden clubs. She has an amazing garden. She lives on about a half acre and it's all just completely crazy gorgeous.
Wonderful.
Vegetable garden, flower gardens, pretty gorgeous, unusual plants, night blooming things. It's just really amazing to go to her house. But so she can go to garden club if she wants with this free time. Singo bingo, which is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but it's a fun kind of bingo where they play the tune. And if you recognize the tune and that tune is in your little bingo square, then you get to color it in. And so it's Singo bingo.
I love that.
Or maybe even just go to the movies. She says it's been years since she took herself to the movies. So then we went to physical, which was her third, and she acknowledged there a lifetime of just neglecting her body, working through the pain, working through the fever, working through the migraine, or whatever, and the resulting toll it's taken on her body. Hang on just a second. She struggles with diabetes, AFib, a skin lesion condition that I don't know the name of, and she's had 13 hernia surgeries.
Oh my.
Because like she was working in a male dominated field, was one of the ones who first broke the glass ceiling. And, you know, the men didn't call out sick.
Right. Wow.
So she couldn't, she just felt like she couldn't. And the men could lift heavy things, need be. And so she was just doing what they did. 13 hernia surgeries. Anyway, now she can't do much in the way of physical exertion. But she says she knows the importance of doing the things that what she says feed her soul or make her feel good from the inside. But she just doesn't, and she understands that ailments are symptoms of an uneasy soul, but she doesn't really understand how that works, what the relation is. So we moved through what could be eliminated, and a healthier diet was the first thing she brought up. She was at one time about 50 pounds overweight. Now she's really down to within 10 pounds of her goal weight, but she still wants to get her diet a little healthier. She usually has a few drinks every evening at home. She doesn't go out to drink, but so she's going to try to cut that down to just weekends and during time with family events or friends. And let's see. She says she's tired of waking up with headaches and dealing with heartburn anyway. So she's okay with making that step. That's her step. And she says the walks on the beach will help her to get more exercise, and she'll start walking in the neighborhood again now that the weather's getting cooler in the evenings. And she's looking at lowering the less sugar, and she's going to talk to her doctor about good vitamin regimen since she's postmenopause at this point. So I feel like with everything that's been going on with her in the last 6 months and I suggested that she might ask her therapist about whether this is triggering a situational depression, because I really feel like it sounds like depression to me. And she's struggling too with a loss of relevance in the family dynamic, having been the matriarch forever since childhood, and now nobody needs her except as a chauffeur. The kids don't need Meemaw for fun time; they need Meemaw for rides.
Right.
So, soul consciousness has not been a front burner thing on her mind, but sorting out her life purpose is certainly a topic she wants to explore. I think soul consciousness will be a happy byproduct of that. So for the
Sounds
human
like a
factors.
powerful session. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it sounds like a powerful session.
We had to cut it short. I was like,
Yeah,
after 2.5 hours, I had to
yeah,
go.
yeah.
I was
So
like,
I didn't
so
mean
we're
to
going to
interrupt you,
finish
but
tomorrow.
yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. It felt like a lot. Human life experiences, trauma, certainly, family dynamics, of course, gender aspects, stage of life, and societal norms
Mhm,
at work and at home, were the ones that I saw.
mhm,
Um,
certainly. And I'll throw in a couple of things. And I was curious. I just pulled out the Louise Hay version of the metaphysical, and the quick interpretation for hernia, since there were so many of them, was ruptured relationships, strain, burden, and incorrect creative expression. And
Duh, that's
and
amazing.
so, yeah, so I always love looking these up. One thing I would say, I wrote a couple notes down here, especially since you're meeting with her again. If you choose to go back and explore with her why everything was kind of bunched in the middle, you could basically do just an open-ended question and say, so what in your mind would it take for you to have scored yourself higher?
Oh,
Because it could just be an open-ended question it's like another way to it's like a litmus test. You test, okay, is it just that's where she would score herself all the time, or is there really a reason behind how she scores that? So that could just be another way to communicate and kind of keep that conversation flowing. um, and,
okay.
and same thing with the lower. It's like, okay, so what would have to happen in your life to score higher, and what would be happening in your life if you scored lower? And it gives you a little bit more of a context for how a person might perceive their scoring. And when you said you both, well, a couple things. It sounds like she's very lonely within the home.
Yeah.
And I tell people it is harder to be lonely with someone than to be lonely alone, because you're constantly trying to figure out how you can reconnect with that person. And it goes back to that magnet metaphor, where it sounds like in some ways the magnet has flipped, but that she's still trying to get it together. And that's exhausting on a person's soul, because when you cannot connect with that person, or the person you think you should be connecting with, under the surface you're constantly trying. So that led me to think about, when you said you both teared up. And for her, and again, that's kind of a gender heritage thing, probably to some extent, of, wow, okay, women are not supposed to cry. She was taught that. So there's maybe some emotional, wounding or trauma around that. The other thing I think of is, and I'm really glad that you brought this up for her, and maybe will bring this up, is the whole idea of, does she need to talk to her therapist about depression? Because with what you've described, it sounds like it's a very depressing situation. But the other part of it is, this is the whole reason I wrote my depression book, the Soul of Psychology depression book, because I think there's a difference between, being a psychologist, I've done this for a long time, but I think there's a very big difference between a biological kind of depression and what I call suppression of the soul. And to me, it is a situational kind of depression for her. But to me, the way I look at this is, her soul's been suppressed for a very long time. And so it's hard for a soul who just, every soul just wants to be who they are. But it sounds like she's kind of been pressed down ever since early, early, early in her life. And so it'd just be a concept to bring up with her is, how can you let your soul out to play? How can you let your soul be more of who it is? And I love the fact that you talked to her about going for walks on the beach, and because she loves that. And so it sounds like you did a really good job, but I bet you were tired afterward. It sounds like a layered conversation. So I don't know if those suggestions were helpful, but I just wanted to throw those things out there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
great
much.
job. Great job. And, this is another example of, and I'm writing things down because I also feel like I need to do, okay, so what does a practitioner or coach do after they've had a heavy session? How do they take care of themselves? So I've got that written down, and I've written down a few other things. So, I'll be adding more in there. Does anybody have any comments for Donna? I think you did a fantastic job. Okay. All right. Yeah, good job. A lot of work. And I do hope you take care of yourself when you meet with her again tomorrow, because it's a lot. Yeah, good job. Okay. Carol, do you want to go ahead and present your second person?
I thought we were letting Krista do one, or no?
Oh, Krista, do you want to go ahead and go? You've actually 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, absolutely. You could go. I was just looking at the list because you've actually presented a lot. So no, go ahead, jump in, and then Carol will do you first next week.
Okay.
Okay. Y'all can hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Just making sure anyway, I just dropped my daughter back at home.
Okay.
So let me also say, in reviewing my notes, because this one is my time that I got to spend, my very treasured time I got to spend with Yetta. I now know that I was I think recovering from COVID when I even wrote these notes for myself, because even my notes are very brief and generic. So please don't let that in any way set the wrong landscape for what I got to experience with Yetta, because this is anyway, I was reviewing this going, my gosh, Krista. Anyway, that's when I had COVID and was recovering and didn't know I had COVID. So obviously we know some things about Yetta, married, 2 adult children that she's very proud of and likes to talk about and share their achievements and the type of adults and people that they have grown into being. Has a background and career as a nursing administrator, registered nurse at age 18, which is a big deal, big accomplishment. And Yetta joked about how, being scared, like if we know other, 19-year-olds that are registered nurses at that age, right? I thought that was funny. But we focus on soul age, right? So wise older souls matter. She has graduate degrees and, of course, pilot's license. She is married, and I think this is third marriage. Have I got that right? I think so. Okay. And she pursued divorce in her previous 2 marriages. The first marriage was when she was very young. And so I very much appreciate her pursuing uh, ending of relationships in that form when she was not satisfied in life by those relationships. We have that in common. Let's see here. So she's done extensive soul healing and spoke a great deal about love and joy from being a great traveler. And while she's traveling, really getting to learn about people and learning and experiencing culture, even from a more deeper kind of way than, say, a more basic kind of tourist experience. She really likes the deep dive, the people, the culture, and having those kinds of deep connected experiences. Shared that from a young age, she's had things kind of pop in her mind. I would think that's divine communication that has guided her to take action. One example was when her baby brother was in bed and it was night. And I believe she saw red on the floor, and she got up and she demanded that her parents check on her brother, and did that in such a way that she was following, the nudging, the divine nudging that something was wrong. And when her brother was checked on, he had actually stopped breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't imagine what that whole experience was like, right? Like being divinely guided, having that guidance so strong, and then you having to stand up to adults and tell them how, that there's something wrong with your brother. Like I can't imagine what that must have felt like being a child at that age. Also shared that in a past life she was a covert spy during the Holocaust. Again, very, very interesting thing to take into consideration as we continued to have dialogue. I think we met for about an hour and a half. Another real significant experience from this particular lifetime that seems to still impact, so to speak, is when her mother remarried. and her stepfather entered a more religious lifestyle, religious way of living. And it seemed as though, to hear her talk about that experience kind of guided her from a life and experience where she had felt more free to express herself, to then, once religion entered into their family unit and their family culture and their experience, that seemed to really restrict her expression of herself. And it seems as though that at least what I was feeling and sensing when we were meeting together, that seems to have made a really big impression for this particular lifetime. She talked a little bit just about at times maybe feeling bored, liking to shop, shop for things that are more pleasure. In her own words, said that she might not need and might even end up, donating somewhere once that she gets them, but she does find some joy in that. And that causes some dialogue between her and her husband. She describes her marriage with her husband, a very good, loving, supportive relationship, one that she's very satisfied in. If there seemed to be one topic that they're learning how to navigate together on certain levels, it might be some of the financial things. It seems as though he focuses more on where money is spent. Yet, is that a good way to summarize that? Okay, all right.
Yeah, he'll spend hours, days looking for the best deal for something that's $10. I just don't
So it is astrology.
So thank you for supplementing that, because I would want that to come from you and not me in describing this experience. And then, of course, we can all, even just sitting in this Zoom room, begin to feel how, anything that might give Yetta the perception of restriction doesn't feel good, right? Because Yetta really wants to be able to express and experience life from a soul joyful place. And so anything that might give her the idea or feeling of restriction is going to bring about, some feelings around that. And we can understand why, given, maybe part of it being the experience that she had when her mom remarried. Let's see here. I did ask how, if any way, does his need to research how money is spent and monitor or guide that, how does, what feelings does that cause? Does that, cause any lack of unimportance for her or self-worth? We could see how that would come to play. Just something for us to explore, for her to think about, not something that we really dove into during our time together. The other interesting experience that, again, I could not imagine this happening, was when Yetta had cancer and she was facing her cancer, having her treatments done at her place of employment. And of course, having her peers, right? Everyone knowing what she was going through was happening, that she lost her job due to what I would say in my terms, of course, I'm not a medical professional, about how the side effects of some of the medication could impact her job performance. And I can't imagine, again, right, like the place that you give your heart and soul to, and then the place that you're also needing to receive help, support, etc., from, having that kind of an experience. Again, that must have been a very sad and painful experience. But she is a cancer thriver and survivor. She identifies herself as an overthinker, as well as being a very nurturing person. And I experienced, of course, both of those things in our session together. Then we dove into her desire to recreate herself re-express herself and her identity, maybe in a part-time role, maybe as something like a soul health caretaker. And so I was really excited to hear the depth of the um, presentation that Yetta gave a little earlier, because I was sitting over here thinking, yay, yay, like this is great, because we spent some time talking a lot about what she does not want, the creation of this part-time soul health caretaker, or whatever she decides to define it, for it not to restrict her travel, her joy, her experience of her family, right? And so really trying to think about what is it that she wants this role to create in her life, trying to focus more on um, what she wants it to do instead of focusing on the concern about how it might limit her. We spend a little bit of time exploring that because, again, feeling restricted to her can bring about a great deal of, I would say, anguish is kind of what I felt like in our session. So we talked about her focus and making the list, of course, of what she does want, instead of the contrast of what she doesn't want, hoping that that will help provide some clarity. She said that she's also working on looking through some magazines and getting some ideas and becoming inspired in that way. And what I loved about that particular activity that she's already working on doing is that again brings joy, I'm sure, in terms of getting out of the mind and getting to experience the joy of looking at various pictures, etc., as she works to create this. I really enjoyed our session and didn't want it to end. I didn't want either one of my two sessions from our peers here, just like the rest of you. And if I'm honest, of the 6 of these I've done, I was the least satisfied with my own job with this one. And I don't know if part of that's because I was sick and didn't know it, but one of the things that I really appreciated, in addition to just getting to know Yetta better, I was really challenged at trying to figure out good soul-based questions. Yetta is definitely a great thinker, and it was challenging for me to be able to find ways to kind of get in, if that makes sense. But that's on me. That's not Yetta. That was me and my own self-reflection of feeling like, ooh, I'm not sure what else or how else to ask.
Okay.
Yep.
So soul factors, human factors.
Well, definitely, with human factors, I've already talked a lot about the different kinds of experiences, limitations, traumas, etc. From soul factors, I also think about even some of her past life stuff, being a covert spy. Like, I was thinking about that when she was even presenting on the person she presented on, like digging deep, like doing things, getting in there to help protect and help someone like figure a lot of things out. That's the way it felt to me, even with her presentation earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very nice job. And I love that you had fun talking to her, because again, this is such a great way to get in touch with one another, and see those different layers. And, especially when someone's been doing a lot of their work, it actually can make it harder to do.
I can see that
as a practitioner, because it's like, okay, so how do I help this person who's already on their path? And yet, that's why when you said, how do I ask soul-based questions? Well, it's not that she has all the answers, but a lot of times people who are well studied, it's a little harder to work with them.
I can see that.
To give yourself a little bit of credit with that, and especially if you had COVID brain at the time, that doesn't help.
Still have it, I think, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think she did a great job. I mean, she brought out the whole thing of how I feel restricted when somebody questions me about money, which is so, I hadn't even thought about that, but it's true. I get caught between respecting their thoughts on it
Mm-hmm.
and standing up for my thoughts on it, and not being, I can go one of two directions usually. It's dig my heels in and say, no, by God, we're doing it this way. Or I can be, okay, I'm not going to fight over this. Just do it, whatever,
Yeah, that's a great awareness.
Yes.
So it's a good thing, for you
She
to,
did a great job.
yeah, kind of poke a hole in it and go,
And I asked for her feedback, and I know we're about over time, but I asked for her feedback at the end of the session, and she gave me some great feedback that it's not that it was good, bad, right, or wrong, but that I kind of just like dove right into the things that I saw
mhm,
and how some people that might be a little too much. So I appreciated that feedback. Hmm.
good, wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful. Now, Krista, you did a great job. And, again, your background comes in very handy because, obviously the social work in general is kind of like a global kind of view of things. But then, having some really good communication to be able to ask those questions is good. Plus, you're a bold person. You're going to dive in.
But it's so funny because I think that's something I'm learning more about myself. And when I'm being my authentic self, I do just dive in more. So I can see that I'm learning more about that side of myself.
Yep.
Thank you, Yetta.
Noticed
Yeah.
that because you did me, and I thought that was so helpful because you went boom. It's like, whoa, that's a question I hadn't thought of. So yeah, it was very helpful. But then I want that kind of thing. Not everybody will. So yeah.
Yes,
Right.
understood.
Yeah, and I will throw this out there too, is like, of course, I'm thinking level 2 already because I've been creating the curriculum, but it's that whole idea of, some zodiacs actually want to get straight to the point and others want to kind of do this. So, it is just it's another tool for you to have so that you understand, oh, okay, how can I work with this person in a way that it's going to penetrate in a way that is helpful to them. So that's good. But no, nice job. The other thing I just wrote down that I hadn't considered before is creating a feedback sheet for the practice clients to be
Yeah.
able to give so that also gives you some more active kind of feedback. And so I've got that on my to-do list, and I think that would be helpful just in general. So I'll get that ready for you as well. Okay, perfect. And I know we're a little bit over. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who have presented. You're doing a fabulous job. I tell people left and right, and I say it over and over again, there's nothing better than me watching souls evolve. There's just, that's what does it for me. And just watching all of you like evolve through this process and like really start to grasp the information. This is coming more readily. It's like you're already doing it. You're doing what I would hope for, and you're doing it beautifully. So, I love it. And so I know that's my payoff, is just to watch that process evolve. So thank you. So I sent an email yesterday of just digging in your spam file or junk file if you haven't found it, because there were some bits of information on there and some feedback that I need. And then next week we'll dive into presentations and we'll see how many we can get chipped out. And then that will give me more information for if we're going to have to take up any of the all day kind of intensive to finish those up. So hopefully not, but if we do, we do. So we'll figure that out. I'm being Sagittarian, we are used to accommodating and switching things around. So you all have a wonderful evening, and if anything comes up, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next Tuesday. Have a great night. Bye-bye.